Hey, what's going on, YouTube? It's Bebop here. We're going to be going over my traditional setup that I normally run with. It's going to be the Bleed Rapier along with the Musket. This setup's going to allow you to do the most damage with the Musket. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start off. Okay, this week is Tempest and then Tarn. So I'll kind of go over these two real quickly. Now, for Tempest, I have the omnidirectional evade, and I usually use Azoth crystal gear. You can get that out of the gypsum kiln. If you have enough materia from running dungeons, you can craft this gear. It comes with enchanted ward and refreshing and a random third perk, and then you can change the final third perk to whatever you want. Once you got 3 chromatic seals, matrix for the armor, and some dark matter and whatnot. Now, I put omnidirectional evade on the clothing here because I normally run with the artifact rapier. And when I do a bleed or evade bleed setup with the rapier, the omnidirectional evade is going to help me do 11% more damage after 2 seconds after doing omnidirectional evade. So that's always good to have there, because some dungeons I like to run Tondo, some dungeons I like to run the evade, and it's just there to help me out either way. Now, I do have Nimble Coat. I haven't finished ranking it up yet. Probably going to put Enchanted Ward on that. A big thing about running M3s in dungeons in general is this is not PvP. So PvP elemental aversion is really good. Basically 99% of things in dungeons are going to be Enchanted Ward, okay? Like, you're going to have to block light and heavy attacks. Even the last boss in Savage that does a lot of elemental looking stuff, they're coded as light and heavy attacks. So Enchanted Ward on at least 3 pieces here, and you'll be good to go, but trying to max out your Enchanted Ward. So the gloves have Enchanted Ward, Refreshing, and Leeching Flurry. Leeching Flurry is the most OP perk probably in the game, one of them. So if you're running Rapier, you must have Leeching Flurry on your clothes. It gives you great survivability and lets you flurry through a lot of things that, you know, normally you wouldn't think you'd be able to flurry through. Like the last boss in Genesis, when the boss does a one-shot mechanic, you can flurry right through that and you'll be good to go. I like having Empowering Shooter Stance on the clothes also. We're going to be doing 11% more damage, and we can stack it up 4 stacks, and it helps you go ahead and get to the empowerment cap with that. So Enchanted Ward, Thrust Conditioning, and Health. Make sure you have 4 pieces of Refreshing on your clothing or jewelry. You want to make sure you're maxed out on that, and get your health potions and all that jazz. I have the Artifact Rapier. Now, the final perk, I used to have Keenly Empowered on it, but I have Thwarting Strikes on there. You can feel to do whatever. I put that on there because I used to run Nature's Wrath with the setup, and I always wanted Thwarting Strikes for the extra damage when I have Grit. Musket. Now, 99% of the time, I run a Keen, Vicious, Refreshing Power Shot Musket. Okay, that's basically the best setup for the Musket. Seldom will I run Vorpal. It depends on the situation. In Savage, Vorpals can be good because the heads of the enemy are so damn big, and you know, I'm actually really trying to hit hard with the Musket in there. A lot of times when I'm running dungeons, I'm just quickly trying to hit a power shot and then a powder burn. That way I can stack 1,000 burn bleed for 9 to 14 seconds on the enemy, and then get right to the Rapier where I'm going to do a lot of damage. I usually run the Heart Rune. Now, I usually run the Cunning Heart Room Storm, so I'm trying something out this week, a little bit different, but I like that because it can give your teammates some power and also some haste. Dexterity, amulet right here, it doesn't matter if it's dex or in or whatever, but empowerment, health, and void protection, pretty much BIS for DPS. And then ring, leeching, thrust damage, hardy, pretty much BIS. Most people are going to run. And then here, Healthy Toast, Refreshing. I mean, if I had a different earring in my, inventory, I'd run something different. I threw this on, just getting a gear set together. Now, Empowering Toast would be better to have as a DPS, but I like Healthy Toast for the extra healing, because some runs you get in there, you don't know how the healer is going to be, or maybe you might need the extra healing on bosses. But Empowering Toast would be better with Nimble and Refreshing Toast. But Healthy Toast allows you to take a mana pot and get 15% of your health. Let's go back and look here. 15% of your base health. So it's another way to heal that's faster than eating a hearty meal. Hearty meal takes a little time to eat. Healthy Toast is pretty quick. Make sure you have your food on you. I usually run Desert Sunrise and Dungeons. If you run a Genesis and you want powerful incense, I have banana pudding because I usually use Dex food. And strong honing stones, powerful honing stones are going to be used in M3s. And then you have your ward pots and all that jazz. Now, attributes, I set it up like this. We got 350 intelligence, 25 focus for the 5% cooldown on the abilities. And then we have the rest into deck. So the 350 int will give you the 10% ability damage buff, the 7% damage to targets below 50% buff, 30% duration applied to damage over time effects. And let's say I had a topaz in the rapier or the musket and I went lightning harnessing, the 10% elemental damage will help buff it too. Now I know people are gonna be like, well, the rapier scales with, dex first and so does the musket. Yeah, but go ahead and test it out. I promise you this runs way more DPS, way more. All right, so that's what I run with the nimble coat. Now if you do a tune leather pants, it's basically, it's going to be the same thing, okay, but you're going to have a little bit more stats in a dex. Now weapon mastery for the rapier, this is a traditional bleed build. It's got Tondo, it's got the flurry and the FNF. And so that's what you're going to do. You're going to build up 3 stacks of bleed on the enemy. Or if there's another rapier, if there's an evade rapier in the group, you'll do 2 stacks of bleeds and then you'll pop them. So normally I would stack up 3. I always start with flurry first. Unless you're going up against the enemy that doesn't have a back, then you would go with Tondo first. But you stack up 3 bleeds and then you pop them. So 99% enemies, you'll flurry first, you'll Tondo, and then you'll flurry. And then as they're bleeding, you'll pop those bleeds for 8,000, 8,000, 8,000. Now it'll be more because you'll have leadership from your tank and Oblivion down probably and all that stuff, but you can see the damage. Now if you start off with flurry first, Tondo first and then go into flurry, I can pop these and it won't be as much as if you started off with flurry first. Now, if you go to the musket, a lot of times what I like to do with the musket is always start off with power shot, roll into the powder burn, and you're going to be stacking up a nice bleed right there, okay? And as people apply debuffs to the enemy, they'll probably just go up. For the 9 to 14 seconds they'll be applied. And that's the way to do it. If you start off with powder burn first and then go into a power shot, it will not be as high of a bleed. And that's because on the musket, the dot right here will give you empower after you hit with a power shot. They give you 10% empower for 5 seconds, okay? Now the powder burn, with this dot selected, standard musket shots are going to do 12% additional damage by hitting a burning target, so that's really good. But it inflicts a burn that deals 20% fire damage for 9 seconds, but it really goes up to like 14 seconds with debuffs on the enemy. I like to run shooter stance because I do like to get down here. I always start off with power shot first, and then right immediately after that, the powder burn. And then that last shot is usually always going to be my refreshing power shot. So let me show you how that goes again. I'll get down in shooter stance, I'll bust the power shot, and then cycle to the powder burn, and then hit 2 more, and then final shot would be the power shot. So power shot, burn, final shot, power shot. That's going to be your big hit right there. So that's pretty much how it is. If I go with the evade bleed on the rapier, when I get out of combat, I will show you that. It's better on bosses than it is mobs. Mobs, Tondo's better, but you're not going to switch it throughout the dungeon. But if you get used to the evade rapier and you pop on 2 bleeds instead of 3, in my opinion, I think it's better. Then you're going to be doing really fast DPS. So let me show you that setup real quick. All right, here we go. Now, put this where it needs to go. All right, here we are. Now, this is going to be very hard to show you on this because evade on these things, I'll slide off. Now, if I put a pylon down, they can help me. So I might do that. But basically, you would start off with You could start off with flurry. I like to start off with evade because when I evade, I get empower. Then you want to flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, and that's what you want to do. And then once you get 3 bleeds, you can pop them. Okay, let me see if I can do that a little bit better on this one. So evade, light attack, flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, and then you get to flurry. It's kind of freaking hard to do on these things here. Let me see if I have an ice gauntlet on me. I do not. Okay. All right, let's try it on this dummy. I slid off on the other one, so video edit. Evade, light attack, flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, flurry, light attack, evade, light attack, and then you'll flurry, and then you'll pop them. So you'll be doing more damage with this build. Now keep in mind, you will sometimes on like Isabella, the final boss of Tempest, you can slide, but don't forget you can evade backwards too. Okay, if you're not holding forward and you evade, you won't just be going past the enemy a lot of times. So you'll learn to do that as you get used to it. If you want to, you just use Tondo and get used to that way. That's the traditional setup. It's the easiest way to do it. But this setup right here with the Rapier on bosses absolutely destroys. Man, it's so fast, dude. So anyways, I think I went over everything. The musket skill tree, I normally run like this. Okay. When you see me throw traps down, it's usually just for the speed in certain dungeons, and that certain dungeon will not be good for a musket, and that's usually just for speed runs to get to point A to point B really quickly, and then to bust off a power shot and then a powder burn, then immediately get right to the rapier. So with silence, I like to have the empowering shooter stance so I can back out of silence and go ahead and bust off some shots for some good DPS, so I'm not stuck in silence. Now if the enemy gets reaped out of the silence, now I'll go right back to the rapier. So this is going to be the setup to run with the musket. All right, let's get into the Glacial Tarn set. Okay, Glacial Tarn, you have a lot of fire damage. It's a fire mutation, and then you have ice damage for the bosses. So you basically want 2 sets. In M3s, you need to have 2 sets. The boss fight is different than basically the regular dungeon. The boss fights don't adhere to the same damage type as the mutation. So let's say it's a lot of fire. Doesn't matter against the bosses. They're more, ice damage in that dungeon. And that goes for boss fights on every dungeon. Okay. They're going to be their own separate thing that you can basically gear for. Now, if there's dots on your back from dodging penalties or whatnot, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because you're not going to be able to probably go full into what you can protect yourself from the bosses, but basically have fire set for the regular dungeon, and then ice set. The first troll boss, you want a strike protection amulet, and the last boss, a slash protection amulet if you're in melee. If you're ranged, then I would just go full ice. Okay. Now I have a bow here because I was messing with the bow yesterday. It's basically a 1.2 second cooldown with a rapid shot, and I was doing some really good DPS with the bow. But all right, that's basically it. A lot of people asked that question, so I wanted to cover that really quick before the end of the video. If you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, man. I appreciate you, and y'all have a good day.